Mythposter syndrome.
Hello and welcome to the first part of my series on bridging the gap with functional play guides for people trying to break into Final Fantasy XI Endgame. I'm Myth, and this first series will be focused on the tank class Paladin. We're going to be focusing on the most common form of tanking, and what I believe to be the most difficult, mass tanking, or tanking hordes of monsters in various settings such as Dynamis, Odyssey segment farms, or even EXP cleave parties. To get started in group content to function as a tank during this style of fighting, there are three major sets you need to have: a tanking and damage taken set, ideally with a lot of magic evasion and health points, a mid-cast set with a minimum of 102% spell interruption down rate to ensure you can cast spells, and a set with as much Phalanx plus gear as you can stack. If you can build those three sets, you're ready to tank anything from cleave merit parties to Odyssey Sheol C, and there's lots to do from there. A tank's job can be split up into categories. I'll go from most important to least important. Staying alive and keeping other party members alive is always the first job of any tank. This is where your damage taken sets come into play. Ensure you keep Phalanx and Cocoon up as much as possible. I personally don't have a good Phalanx set, and I ask for a Minne from my bard to make sure that I reach a threshold that I aim for. It's about 4,500 defense. A good number to aim for Phalanx is at least plus 20, but if you're willing to swap into weapons like the Odyssey sword and the Pre-Win, that will give you an extra plus 7 at very little cost. If you have concerns about being under-geared or missing ultimate weapons, like the Bird Gang or an upgraded Dubon, don't worry about it. I began tanking Sheol C long before I had a Bird Gang. For swords, I would recommend two options for beginning players: the SU4 Caballerious sword, which requires you to have at least 1200 job points to equip, or the Odyssey sword, which you'll have to obtain by defeating Kolunga, one of the tier 3 Odyssey Atonement bosses. While Odyssey sword is easier to get and doesn't require any rank points to be functional, the Caballerious sword is an inexpensive way to get an extra defense bonus, HP, and refresh while you work towards that Bird Gang. At this point, you might be wondering why I haven't mentioned enmity sets. The answer is, while managing enmity and keeping your party alive is crucial, dedicated enmity sets aren't mandatory for this style of tanking. They can be helpful at times, like when a dangerous monster appears, and having extra enmity is useful in some spell interruption rates, like AoE blue magic, but tanking mini monsters is highly dependent on the style of play that you choose. I tend to favor a method called super tanking. This is where a tank initiates aggro by running in front of or near a monster to draw aggro, and then not performing any actions on them. This ensures that all monsters that are not being attacked by a party member are attacking you. Before utilizing this method, it's important to know if there are any party members in your group using AoE spells or weapon skills. You don't want the swarm of goblins you just pulled running straight to your healer because they healed a Geomancer who tagged them with Diaga. I prefer the method of super tanking for a few reasons. It allows you as a paladin to focus on things like healing the party, doing damage, and pulling more monsters while your party kills the groups nearby. If you have the ability to sleep them, you can pull to your party, and then run and get more. It's always frustrating as a DD when you have a tank that gets too much aggro, and then runs away while you're trying to weapon skill. And trust me, as the tank, you don't want to listen to the angsty Dark Knight complaining in party chat. Whether you choose to super tank or tag all the monsters you pull, it's important to understand when to utilize your job abilities. Job abilities like Sentinel and Rampart are excellent hate tools as well as defensive tools. If you choose to tag monsters, it is best to save these abilities to make sure you have solidified aggro. Now that you understand the basics of pulling groups of monsters, the next step to being a great tank is prioritizing. A good friend of mine once told me, tank the things that need tanking. An example of this is the Aegon Monarch on the 4th floor of Sheol C. This Lamia has a nasty ability that can easily one-shot supports or damage dealers. In the footage shown, you can see that on my initial pull, I did not get the aggro of all the monsters in the area. Likely, my Scholar used a job ability and aggroed some of the imps before I was in rage. I prioritized this pull by using an AoE spell to tag the monsters that weren't attacking me. I then used Sentinel to ensure that they would not go after my healer. The next step on the list was to make sure I have enough hate on the monster that poses the most threat, the Monarch. Once you've mastered keeping your party alive and your DD supplied with lots of things to kill, you can move on to the last part of being a veteran tank, doing damage. Dealing damage as a paladin isn't always about savage blading as hard as you can, or as much as you can. More often, it's about utilizing abilities and debuffs you have access to. One ability that all paladins should take advantage of is Holy Circle. If you're fighting undead, this ability gives your party members a 15% damage increase before gear is applied. Another underutilized spell is Banishka. Banishka type spells reduce damage resistances from undead monsters. This helps quite a bit when your bard is fighting skeletons and only has damage types that are resisted. With master levels, Paladin also gains access to Frightful Roar from the Blue Mage subjob. If you stack up some magic accuracy in a spell interrupt set, this spell can give an AoE 10% defense down. This can greatly benefit your party in Sigma farms where you may not always be attack capped. And don't forget, if you've already done everything you can to be all the tank you can be, you can throw out some mean savage blades on Paladin, especially when you can line monsters up and abuse the TP gain from the job trait Shield Mastery. That's all for this video. Leave a comment below if you have any questions or anything to add. Next time, I'll discuss tanking bosses, where sets like Enmity and Fastcast come more into play. Thanks for watching.